Hi friends! Some of you have been baking sourdough bread for the very first time at home, and I'm so proud of you. I've gotten a lot of questions about how to feed your sourdough starter. And if you've gotten some starter from me, I sent you a cool email. But sometimes it's hard to make sense. Well, okay, I've read this. Well, how do I actually do it? So I'm going to invite you into my nightly ritual. I feed my starter. It is active and at room temperature consistently. I bake with it every day. I feed it once a day. If you're going to be baking with it a lot more, you might be feeding it twice a day. So let me show you my daily feeding ritual. I like to think of a sourdough starter as like the lowest maintenance pet. It's quiet. You only feed it and change it once a day, or like the world's best behaved baby that you also makes dinner for you. So I mean, don't know if it can get any better than that. Let me show you how this goes. Okay, so we need a couple of tools. As you can see, I have my handy dandy trusty kitchen scale. Mine is pink. I've had this for a really long time. You know the story if you've taken a class with me. This is like a friend. It weighs in grams and ounces. This is really helpful for you to do a lot of baking. I also have some nice hot water in my kettle and some room temperature water in my filtered water pitcher. This is my sourdough starter. Do you guys want to say hi? I feel like we should name it. I don't know what to name it, but I think it does need a name. It's definitely a pet and a presence in our life. So that's what it looks like. Can you hear it bubbling? It's very happy. Tons of bubbles, amazing smell. This is very happy sourdough starter. And let me show you how we get it there and keep it there. So the first thing I want to do is I'm going to measure out in ounces. I'm going to zero out my scale, just like that. And I'm going to go ahead and measure out 4 ounces of sourdough starter. I'll give you guys a closer view here. So 4 ounces is what I'm going to save. And I'm going to measure this first and set it aside before I do any of my other baking, so that I always have 4 ounces set aside. This is like going to be the perpetuation of your starter for all time. So you really want to make sure that you keep this and that you set it aside. 4 ounces. It's about a cup-ish. There you go. Okay. And if you have any little drips, move those aside. So this is my starter. I'm saving it. This is what I will feed. Okay. So I'm going to use this in other recipes. And I am going to get a container to put my starter in. You can put your starter in a metal bowl or a glass bowl with some plastic up, or you can put it in a plastic container with a lid. Just make sure that it's fully covered. So I'm actually going to put mine in a plastic container tonight and move it around. I like to really wash my starter bowl out really well every couple of days. You can kind of leave it in there and feed it for a little while, and then you got to switch it up. So I'm going to change out. I'm going to go ahead and add 113 grams of lukewarm water. I'm going to add a tiny splash of my nice warm water to give myself that nice magic number. Okay, so I have weighed out my water. It's not too hot. If you want to be really careful, nice clean hands, feel it. It shouldn't be too warm to the touch. Think about bath water like you bathe a baby in, very lukewarm. Okay, so here's what happens next. I'm going to take my sourdough starter. Remember, we just measured this out, that 4 ounces, it's still bubbly. I'm going to mix it into that 113 grams of water. So already we have a slight discrepancy. We're weighing our starter in ounces and our water in grams. So that's okay. You guys can hang with that, right? Right. Okay, it's like dollars and cents. Okay, so now this is a really important step. I'm going to mix my starter into my water really thoroughly until everything is all the same. Don't rush this step. Make sure that when you do this, your water is neither too cold nor too hot. Hot water can actually kill your yeast. So make sure that your starter is at room temperature and that it never gets hot. It shouldn't be near a window with direct sunlight. It shouldn't be on top of a stove that's getting very hot. It should never get hotter than, say, 80 degrees, which is cooler than body temperature. So that's going to still feel cool to the touch. Okay, so there is that. Now that I have added my water to my starter. I'm going to zero out my scale, and I'm going to add 113 grams of all-purpose flour. So I'm on 0, and again, that's grams. So if you remember, that's exactly the same weight of the water. We're adding equal parts of water and flour to the starter. You don't want to add too much because you can't really take it away. So there's that. And once my flour is added, I'm going to give this a really good stir until everything is all mixed together. The reason why we added the water first and then dissolved our starter is that it would mix really, really well. If you break your starter up in some water, it will adjust the flour really well. The other things that can kill your starter is salt. Never add salt when you're feeding your starter. Salt gets added later while you're baking the bread. Salt can kill yeast. You don't want to do that. This is yeast. It's a yeast. It's a wild yeast sourdough starter. We want to keep this baby alive. And you know what yeast likes to eat? What I like to eat. Starches, carbs, right? Delicious. Okay, so then you're going to get every last drop off of that spoon that you can, cover it securely, and leave it in a room temperature spot where it's going to be away from heat and away from light. And that is how you feed your sourdough starter. I do this every day at the same time. Consistency really matters. And you always want to make sure that no matter what bread you bake, that you save 4 ounces every day. You continue to feed that. Everything else that is in addition to that 4 ounces, I'm free to use this in some bread dough, and I'll show you how to do that next.